Revealed how my daughter's $43,000 betrayal led to an amazing transformation in our lives. Mike had always been proud of his work ethic. A local veteran, he'd spent years cultivating a life for his daughter, Emma, fueled by late nights and early mornings, all while teaching her the value of honesty and hard work. Their laughter echoed through the small suburban home they shared, especially during Sunday barbecues. But as graduation neared, something shifted in Emma. She began to whisper about quick wealth and the allure of instant success. The idea of a risky investment caught her eye, and with it, the temptation to use Mike's life savings of $43,000 meant for her college education. When Mike discovered the betrayal, it felt like the air had been ripped from his lungs. The tight-knit community of their small town, once a source of comfort and joy, turned into a reminder of his deepest pain. There were tears in his eyes as his neighbor, Miss Patterson, whispered sympathy. "You're not alone, Mike," she assured him, reflecting on her own struggles through the harsh seasons of life. The realization hit him. People understood hardship. He wasn't adrift in a sea of loneliness. Yet the tidal wave of rage and disappointment crashed mercilessly over him. Could he forgive Emma for such an unforgivable act? He had always preached about accountability, and now the very essence of what he stood for was in jeopardy. Their bond, once unshakable, now hung by a thread, as societal expectations added weight to his heart. How could he face his daughter after this? Emma stood at the precipice of despair herself, guilt weighing heavy on her shoulders, sinking her spirit deeper into the ground. The tightness in her chest reminded her of the pain she had caused, and she yearned for forgiveness. Together, they faced a challenging road ahead. Their trust, shattered, needed reconstructing. As they labored over projects side by side, determination glimmered through tears. They didn't just remodel their relationship, they handmade it, brick by brick. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The duo started an entrepreneurial venture, crafting a small business out of necessity and hope. Each small victory breathed new air into their relationship, revealing strengths neither knew they possessed. Neighbors visited, providing support and sharing their stories, the community wrapping them in warmth like a favorite blanket. Yet, gnawing doubts lingered. What if they failed?
Could they mend the fabric of trust that once held them together? They ventured cautiously into the unknown, embracing the lessons learned through their storm of emotions. Could they turn this dark chapter into a story of redemption? As they rolled up their sleeves, the shadows of betrayal looming, a sliver of hope flickered, daring them to hold on tight to each other. The question remained, could they truly heal, or would the scars of the past forever haunt the future? The following weeks swept by in a blur of activity and emotion. Mike and Emma poured their hearts into their new venture. They decided to sell homemade candles, drawing inspiration from colorful memories of family gatherings filled with warmth and laughter. Each candle symbolized not just a product, but a small glimmer of hope for their future. Their living room transformed into a bustling workshop. Scents of vanilla and lavender filled the air, bathing the space in comfort. Emma stood at the kitchen counter, waxing the candles, while Mike carefully crafted their marketing materials. The teamwork felt good, almost like they were dancing in sync. Each time they launched a new fragrance, a wave of excitement washed over them. Yet, amidst this newfound rhythm, shadows sometimes crept back. One late evening, while packing orders, Emma's hand trembled as she wrapped a candle in delicate tissue paper. "Dad, do you think I'm a disappointment?" she asked abruptly, her voice barely a whisper. The question hung in the air, heavy with vulnerability. Mike paused. He could see the flicker of fear in her eyes. "Emma," he started, "we all stumble. You're still learning." But would she ever really believe him? The betrayal, while in the past, still echoed in the corners of their hearts. Night after night, the doubts loomed, yet so did small wins. They began to make sales. Neighbors dropped by to buy candles, and suddenly the excitement of business replaced the bitterness of the past. Their little shop attracted the curious. A local artisan market allowed them to showcase their work, and as they set up their booth, they felt an undeniable camaraderie with local talent. But just as things began to look bright, an unexpected twist sent Mike's heart racing. While organizing their inventory, he stumbled upon texts on Emma's phone that hinted at her past investment plans. A deep-seated anger surged through him, threatening to breach the fragile trust they'd worked hard to rebuild. That evening, after a quiet dinner, he confronted her. "Why are you still thinking about that investment, after everything?" His voice broke, reminding them both of where they had been. Emma's eyes welled up, and she reached for the hem of her shirt. "I thought maybe if I could find a way to get the money back, I could." A chasm of silence filled the room. She trailed off, not sure how to finish her thought.
"I've been trying to move forward, Emma," Mike stated, his heart racing from the duel between anger and love. "It feels like you're still tied to those choices." The room grew heavy, filled with unspoken fears and regrets. Did she really understand the weight of what she had done? Was there still a shadow lurking in the corners of their budding relationship? In that moment, echoes of their past weighed on them both. Both father and daughter stood at an emotional crossroads once again. As they locked eyes, hope flickered, but fear loomed, testing everything they had fought to rebuild. Would this moment be the breaking point or the turning point they both needed? The stakes had never felt higher. And as Mike breathed deeply, preparing for what had to be said next, the tension crackled in the air. Would Emma finally discover what true accountability meant, or was she on the edge of making another mistake? Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she fought back tears. She had braced herself for the conversation, but the weight of his words was heavier than she anticipated. "Dad, I swear I'm trying," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I thought if I could just fix things, if I could show you I'm better." Mike's expression shifted slightly, something between frustration and a flicker of hope. "You can't fix everything with money, Emma. It's about trust and choices, about being honest with each other." She glanced down, tears finally spilling over. "I didn't want to be a burden anymore. I thought that maybe this candle business would help us heal." There was a quiet sincerity in her words that forced Mike to take a breath. They stood in silence for a long moment, the tension like a thick fog in the room. Mike felt as if the walls were closing in on them, yet he also felt a piece of his heart stir, begging him to remember the hope they had crafted together, one candle at a time. "Look at what we've built together," he said softly, gesturing to the boxes of candles piled high. "We've done this as a team. Let's keep moving forward." Emma's eyes met his, searching for that glimmer of affirmation she so desperately needed. "Do you really believe we can?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "That I can make this right?" His heart ached for her vulnerability, for the little girl who once looked up at him with admiration. "You have to believe it first. Every step forward, regardless of how small, is worth something. But you have to let go of the past, too, and be honest with me." Emma wiped her tears away. "I will. I promise." The next few days were pivotal. Emma dove into the candle business with renewed zeal. She poured her energy into creating unique scent combinations, often testing them on Mike, who offered playful feedback. "This one smells like trouble," he'd joke, and she'd laugh, the bonds between them slowly mending. Yet, lurking beneath their newfound joy was the tension of unfinished conversations.
One night, as they prepared for an upcoming market, Emma discovered an old bank statement tucked under her laptop. The numbers glaring back at her felt like a ghost from her past. Planning her fix didn't mean she was truly ready to erase the mess she had made. "Why do I keep coming back to this?" she muttered to herself, excitement slipping from her fingertips. Would these new scents and profits truly mean anything when the shadows from her choices remained? Mike walked in, catching her mid-thought. "You okay?" "Just thinking," she said, forcing a smile as she tucked the statement under a pile of papers. "About us and how far we've come." He nodded, sensing a gravity in her voice. "It's amazing, right? We're really doing this." "Yeah, we are," she replied, though doubt lingered in the corners of her mind. Would they come out unscathed? Could they cling to the hope they had built, even as uncertainty loomed like storm clouds overhead? The day of the market arrived, buzzing with energy as artists and patrons filled the sunlit street. Emma and Mike set up their booth, candles glowing like little treasures. Emboldened by the potential ahead, they felt ready. But just as they began to engage customers, Emma's phone buzzed in her pocket. A message flashed on the screen. Her old partner, the one linked to her past investment. The moment felt like a punch to the gut. "It's about time we talked," it read. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she felt Mike's presence beside her. As he scanned the crowd with excitement, she stood frozen, a mere heartbeat away from a past that threatened to come crashing down once more. What would happen if she couldn't cut those ties? Would this moment unravel everything they had worked for? The weight of her decision loomed, even amidst the laughter and light of their new journey. Mike turned to her, his expression brightening, oblivious to the turmoil swirling inside her. "Hey, check out this customer." But as Emma stared at her phone, a decision loomed larger than ever. The crossroads was now clearer than before, and the choices before her had never felt so impactful. It was time to decide what path to take. Was she ready to let go of her past for good, or would she let it haunt them once again? The buzz of the market seemed to fade around Emma as she stared at her phone, her pulse quickening. That message felt like a lifeline to her past, a tether pulling her back into a world she had fought so hard to escape. She could feel Mike's energy radiating beside her, a mix of hope and excitement, but all she felt was a knot tightening in her stomach. "Emma?" Mike's voice broke through her reverie. He was looking at her now, his brow creasing with concern. "What's wrong?" She quickly slipped her phone into her pocket, a slow breath escaping her lips. "Nothing. Just a lot to think about." She couldn't share the truth with him now, not when they were on the cusp of something new.
"Right," he nodded, though she could tell he wasn't convinced. He turned back to the booth, launching into a pitch about their candles to a couple that had approached. Emma forced a smile, joining the conversation. She watched the customers interact with their products, admiring the flickering flames encapsulated in colorful glass jars. But her mind was elsewhere, and the fear crept back in. What if that message from her past turned everything sour? Just as a sense of dread settled in, she felt Mike's hand brush against hers. It was a gentle reminder of their connection, their shared dreams. "Emma," he said, nudging her gently as they awaited the customer's reaction. "Remember that one candle we made, the forest blend? This smells just like it." He beamed, scanning the customers' faces. "It's going to be a hit." As he spoke, Emma realized how far they had both come. She clung to those moments, hoping they could once and for all replace the memories that haunted her. But the happiness kept slipping, caught against the looming specter of her partner's message. The couple considered a buy, and in a moment of courage, Mike said, "This candle has a story, you know. It's about overcoming challenges and finding your way back to what matters." His words hung in the air, and Emma felt their weight. Could she embrace that too? The journey wasn't just about candles. It was about reclaiming her life. As they made their first sale, applause erupted from a nearby booth. Emma turned as she noticed another vendor unveiling their latest creation, a larger-than-life candle sculpture that drew a crowd. The artist was explaining how they transformed loss into art. The story resonated deep within Emma. Everyone had something to overcome, even those who seemed untouched by hardship. "Here, these are for you." The vendor handed her a small candle, a gesture of goodwill. "It's called Overcoming Shadows. I thought you might need one." Emma's heart swelled at the simple act of kindness. As she held the candle close, she felt Mike's arm around her back. "See? We're creating our own story, one candle at a time," he whispered, placing his hand over hers. The warmth from his touch helped to counter the chill of uncertainty creeping back into her mind. Despite that comfort, her thoughts raced. How did she explain the situation? What would happen when her past demanded its presence? Before she could form a coherent plan, another message vibrated between them, a text demanding attention. Mike turned in surprise. "What is it?" Emma took a deep breath, caught off guard. "It's nothing, just another confirmation for our next shipment." She forced the words out, trying to hold on to the moment, but the tension never left her. The day wore on, filled with laughter and new friendships sprouting among the vendors. Yet inside, Emma felt like a tightrope walker, balancing precariously between hope and fear. What if I just block his number? She contemplated, but that felt like a child's way out. As they wrapped up the market, the sense of accomplishment was palpable. Customers were buzzing and they had made genuine connections. But that unease was like a storm cloud, hovering quietly.
When they returned home, Emma found herself at the crossroads again, staring at her phone. The shadows of her past were still there, whispering their doubts. "Dad?" she murmured, her heart racing at the thought of coming clean. "I need to talk." But as she began typing, another message buzzed in, this one from Mike. "I'm so proud of you today. Can't wait to see what tomorrow brings." Emma stood at the brink, the choice before her stark and heavy. Would she step into the light of her newfound courage, or let the shadows engulf her once more? The weight of what she had to decide loomed larger than the flickering flame of the candles they had created. Could choosing honesty bring about real change, or would it destroy everything she had rebuilt? Determined, she hit send. The conversation was not just a choice, it was the beginning of a whole new path. Emma stared at her phone screen, heart thumping like a drum. The message was sent, but the anticipation of his reply felt like waiting for a storm. Where had the day gone? The bright market that had been filled with laughter and possibility now seemed to fade into the background, overshadowed by her internal turmoil. She flopped onto the couch, staring blankly at the wall, as if the answers were written there. "What have I done?" The words escaped her lips in a whisper, filled with trepidation. It was a hard choice she'd never anticipated having to make, but it had become necessary. In her gut, she felt the pull of honesty against the weight of secrecy pressing down on her shoulders. Just then, her phone buzzed again. Emma's heart leaped as she grabbed it, praying for Mike's name to appear. Instead, it was a reply from her father. "I'm here for you. Let's talk tomorrow." The straightforward words offered little comfort. Instead, they left her wondering if she had unleashed something she could never take back. She took a deep breath, trying to ground herself. It was one thing to address the ghosts of her past, but it was another entirely to confront the vulnerability this would bring. What if he doesn't understand? The insecurities clutched at her, nearly choking her resolve. When Mike finally walked in, his face lit up with a smile that radiated warmth. "Hey, how was the rest of your day?" He dropped his bag by the door and moved to sit beside her, his eyes sparkling with pride. "It was good." She struggled to find the right words, feeling the weight of what she needed to say. But how could she open that door without knowing what lay beyond it? "Just good?" he teased, nudging her playfully. "You made your first big sale. You should be basking in all this glory." His infectious enthusiasm tugged at some of her apprehensions. Emma forced a smile, wishing she could mirror his joy. There's something I need to tell you." The words felt thick, caught in her throat like a stubborn lump. Mike's expression shifted. "What is it?" Taking another steadying breath, Emma finally decided. "About the message I received earlier. It's from my dad." His eyes widened with curiosity and concern. "Oh, is everything okay?" She hesitated, grappling with all the emotions that flooded her at the thought of her father and the past she'd fought so hard to escape. I have to tell you the truth about why I cut ties with him." Mike leaned in closer, concern etching across his features. "You can tell me anything, Emma. You know that, right? But could he really understand the complexities of her connection with her father? The shame, the guilt, the tight hold it all had on her present? It's just complicated. I'm all ears." His voice was gentle but insistent, urging her to open up. As she grappled internally with her decision, memories flooded back, some filled with regret, others still tinged with hope. "I was never meant to go back. I thought leaving would free me," she confessed. "Maybe it can," Mike said softly, placing a hand on hers. "You don't have to carry it all alone." His compassion made her heart swell, yet the wall she'd built around her emotions still loomed large. "What if the truth shatters everything we've built?" Emma admitted, voice shaking. "Emma, if it does, then maybe it wasn't meant to be," Mike replied simply. "But what matters is that you're being honest with yourself and with me." The truth hung between them like an unlit candle, waiting for a spark. Emma felt tears prick the back of her eyes. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that revealing herself, flaws and all, would only deepen their bond. "We'll take it one step at a time," Mike reassured her, his thumb brushing against her knuckles. But even as his words aimed to soothe her anxieties, a part of her felt like a storm was brewing,
an inevitable confrontation with her past that could unravel everything she had built with him. Would he still hold her close when the pieces of her life scattered around them? As she met his gaze, the moment stretched, heavy with unspoken fears. The warmth of his hand was a stark contrast to the chill of uncertainty lurking in her heart. "I just hope I can find a way to make you understand," she whispered, feeling both terrified and liberated. "What if I don't like what I hear?" Mike asked, his expression earnest, ready for whatever revelation lay ahead. Feeling the walls begin to crack, Emma leaned in, heart racing. "What if I told you I didn't just leave him because he was hurting me, but because I hurt him too?" In that moment, she could sense the shift. The storm was drawing nearer, and she was standing on the edge of something new. As Emma's words hung in the air, the silence that followed felt heavy and electric.
Mike's eyes searched her face, looking for any signs that would guide him through this new terrain. She could see the wheels turning in his mind as he tried to digest what she had just revealed. "I don't understand," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean you hurt him?" With a shaking breath, Emma felt the nostalgic weight of her memories pressing down. She had buried them deep, hoping they would never resurface. "When I was younger, I made choices. Bad choices. I distanced myself from him. But I didn't just leave. I blamed him." Her voice trembled as raw emotion surged through her. "For everything wrong in my life. But I was also a kid, acting out, trying to find a sense of independence. I hurt him in ways I can't even begin to explain. And then I ran away, thinking I'd escape it all." Mike shifted closer, his brow furrowed, his concern palpable. "Emma, it sounds like you're carrying a lot of guilt, but you were a kid. It's not all on you." "I thought running away would fix things," she continued, feeling the tears slipping down her cheeks. "I thought it would shield me from my father's pain, from everything. But all I did was add another layer to the hurt. I didn't realize then how much it would affect him, and me." The memories flooded in. Her father standing in the doorway with tears in his eyes as she walked out. The marriage that crumbled under the weight of uncertainty. The family holidays spent pretending they were whole, while inside they were anything but. The guilt constricted around her heart like a vice. Mike squeezed her hand. "But you reached out to him, right? That's a step forward." "Yes, but now I don't know if I can really go back. I keep thinking, what if he hates me? What if he thinks I'm just reopening old wounds?" She looked up at him, searching for reassurance, needing to feel that she wasn't diving into an abyss alone. "I don't think he could ever hate you for trying to understand the past," Mike said softly, his voice steady and reassuring. "It might be painful, but facing that pain could bring closeness, not distance." Emma felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. "But it's also terrifying. What if I discover things I cannot bear?" Sometimes facing the truth is the only way to move forward. His gaze was intense, filled with sincerity. "You deserve to know. Your healing depends on it. And I'll be right here, every step of the way." His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, pulling her back from the edge of despair. She gazed at him, her heart filled with gratitude, but also fear. What if the talks open a wound I can't fix? What if I break even more? Then you fix it together. You're not alone in this. Emma tried to swallow the whirlwind of emotions threatening to spill over. The storm was still brewing, but maybe, just maybe, leaning into the chaos was the answer she'd been seeking.
She bit her lip, suddenly conscious of how much she wanted to reach out to her father. But was it worth it? "You really think that, Mike?" "I do," he replied, moving closer, his presence comforting. "You can't control how others feel, but you can control how you respond to them. You have to give yourself a chance." Taking a deep breath, Emma looked into Mike's eyes, a tremor of determination stirring inside her. "Okay, but I need you with me when I do this." "Always," Mike said, his voice firm and unwavering. As they sat in the dim light of the room, a feeling of both trepidation and courage surged through her. Would she find clarity or chaos?
Could she handle the truth, whatever it may be? But deep down, Emma felt like she had just taken her first real step toward healing, and the road ahead, while uncertain, lay open before her, filled with possibilities waiting to unfold. The question remained, could she confront her father and express the hard truths they both needed to hear? Would she be met with understanding or anger? The storm was near, and she was standing at its doorstep. Emma leaned back against the sofa, her eyes drifting to the window where the late afternoon sun slipped slowly behind the trees, casting long shadows across the room. The insignificant sounds of the world outside faded as her thoughts pulsed louder, each one loud enough to drown out the silence that lingered between her and Mike. "Do you think he'll even want to talk?" she asked, her voice shaky. The question slipped out before she could catch it, vulnerability spilling into the space between them. "I think he will," Mike replied, his tone steady. "You've taken the first step by reaching out. He likely feels your absence deeply." His words felt like a balm on her anxious heart, but doubt still flickered. "What if I ruin everything?" Emma whispered, a lump rising in her throat. "What if I just make it worse?" Mike hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. "It's not about perfection. It's about honesty. You're not responsible for how he reacts. You're responsible for speaking your truth." His gaze intensified, urging her to absorb the weight of his reassurance. Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes, imagining the inevitable confrontation. Would he open the door with a smile, or would he turn cold? Would he see the girl who left, or the woman she had become? "Maybe we need to plan it out," she said, voicing her swirling thoughts. "What if I just wrote it all down, made a list of everything I want to say?" "That could work," Mike encouraged, brushing his thumb across her knuckles. "Just be true to yourself. You're not a child anymore. You have the power to tell your story." She nodded slowly, comforted by his presence, but still mired in uncertainty. "It's just so much time has passed. How do you even start a conversation like that? How do you rebuild what's been broken?" "You just say it," he replied firmly. "You say, 'I'm sorry.'"
You admit what you've done. It won't be easy, but it's necessary. Healing starts with honest dialogue. Emma felt a surge of anxiety. She hadn't said those words in years, hadn't allowed herself to. What if they shattered everything further? What if he doesn't forgive me? "Then you take it step by step. At least you'll know you tried," he replied, his voice steady. "Nothing can ever change unless you face it." A soft sigh feebed down his lips as the sunset deepened to vibrant oranges and purples. She felt an inkling of courage blooming inside her, suffocated as it was by fear. If she really wanted to heal, she had to risk stepping into the unknown. Suddenly, vision of her father surfaced, conjuring a wide array of memories. His laughter, the way he'd cheerfully whistle through their home, the way his smile would brighten the dullest days. But there were also shadows in those memories, the sobs he stifled on lonely nights, the cracked voice when he called her name after she'd left. "Okay," she finally whispered, determination settling over her like a warm embrace. "I'll do it. I'll talk to him." "Good," Mike smiled, relief washing over him. "We can think through what you want to say tonight. I'm right here, okay?" A shiver of gratitude gripped her, turning her heart tender. He was in this fight with her, and it made all the difference. Emma grabbed her phone and began to type out her thoughts, words slowly forming into something tangible. Each letter pushed her forward. But as she stared at the screen, her thoughts circled back to the faces of her family, the laughter, the heartaches, the moments that felt too heavy to lift. It was all there, waiting just beneath the surface. As the last light of day faded into twilight, one thing consumed her mind. What if facing her past meant discovering a truth she had hidden from herself all along? Would reconciliation bring them closer, or unleash a deeper pain? With the weight of her future looming before her, uncertainty hung thick in the air as she prepared to dive into the depths of her heart and history. Emma's journey was only beginning, and the road ahead held uncharted territories she wasn't ready for. What awaited her when she reached out to him? Would unlocking the past set them free, or unleash more chaos? The sun dipped even lower, the twilight deepening around Emma as she typed a few more words before pausing. Each letter seemed charged with a weight that pressed on her chest. The screen flickered under the dimmed light. What was she really trying to say? "Hey, you okay?" Mike's voice pulled her back.
He leaned forward, his eyes searching hers for uncertainty. I think I just can't find the right words, she admitted, feeling vulnerable again. Even now, with Mike's unwavering support, the shadows of doubt crept back in. Give yourself time. It's a huge step. He took a sip of his drink, his gaze still fixed on her. What were you thinking about saying next?
Emma bit her lip and glanced back at her screen. Maybe something about how much I miss him, how sorry I am for everything. Start there, he smiled gently. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just tell him how you feel. Yet the act of reaching out felt monumental. There were years piled atop years of silence and misunderstandings. What if the warmth of reconciliation turned into the chill of rejection? You'll be fine. You have to believe that, he encouraged softly. Taking a deep breath, she wiped her slightly clammy hands on her jeans. Can you help me think of how to say it? Of course. He shifted closer, their knees almost touching, offering her the comfort she so desperately needed. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Just speak it. Emma closed her eyes. I guess I want to tell him that I regret leaving, that I never meant for it to turn out this way. Perfect. He paused, letting his words settle. Why did you leave? What did you believe back then? That I could do it on my own. I thought I could escape the pain. Her voice trembled. The truth was exhausting, a relentless storm in her heart. Do you believe that now? Emma sighed, the weight of clarity pressing down. No, I see now that running away didn't fix anything. It only made things worse. Mike nodded, his expression serious. Exactly. And now you're the one who can make it right. You're strong enough to face this. She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze with newfound resolve. What if he can't forgive me, though? What if he hates me? Then you face that too, Mike replied firmly. But at least you've tried. You deserve that chance, and so does he. His conviction sparked something inside her. What if she could really do this? What if confronting her fears brought her closer to something beautiful? Okay, let's write it down, she finally said, her fingers flying over the keys, pouring out her emotions as Mike guided her along. Phrase by phrase, they constructed her message, a mosaic of regret and hope. As the words formed, the fear that had gripped her slowly began to loosen its hold. With each sentence, the heaviness lifted a little more. She spoke of memories, of laughter, of love lost and never forgotten. This is amazing, Mike whispered, admiring the growing letter on the screen. Finally, Emma hit send. The message sailed into the ether, carrying with it pieces of her heart. Her breath hitched as anxiety threatened to take over again. What now? She murmured, her voice shaky. Now we wait, and whatever happens, know that you've already done the hardest part. They sat in silence for a moment, the air crackling with tension and possibility. Emma could feel her heart racing, the knot of anticipation tightening. That long-awaited moment of truth felt closer than ever. What would unfold next? Would her father open the door to forgiveness, or would he lock her out once more?
As she stared at her phone, realizing she just stepped into a terrifying yet transformative journey, a new question whispered through her mind. Could this really be the start of mending a long-shattered bond, or was the break too deep to heal? The minutes ticked by, each one stretching endlessly, as anxiety coiled tighter in Emma's stomach. She watched Mike, who remained calm, sipping his drink with an ease that contrasted her own turbulent thoughts. She envied his ability to simply breathe. What if he's too hurt? She finally murmured, breaking the silence. What if he doesn't even want to talk? Then you deal with it, Mike replied gently. You've stepped into that difficult space for a reason. Remember that. Trust that you've done your part. In that moment, Emma felt the warmth of his words flicker against the chill of her fears. But doubt lingered. If only she could know. If only she could predict the outcome, she thought. You want to know what I think? He said suddenly, breaking through her spiraling thoughts. She nodded, leaning in. Whatever happens next, you're stronger than you believe. You've already taken a huge step forward by reaching out. That counts for something. With a small sigh, Emma tried to latch on to his positivity. Moments passed in silence, the clock ticking steadily in the background. Each sweep of the second hand seemed to mock her restless heart. Just then, her phone buzzed. The sound jolted her upright. She stared at the screen, her breath catching in her throat as dread filled every corner of her being. Is it... Mike began, his voice trailing off as he watched her.
Slowly, she wrapped her fingers around her phone, the weight of it feeling strangely heavy. She hesitated, uncertainty crashing over her like a wave. What if his response was everything she feared? Open it, Mike encouraged, his voice low. Emma glanced at him, then back at her phone. With shaking hands, she swiped to unlock the screen, revealing a message from her father. She held her breath. The words started to form, but they danced just out of reach. In a moment of raw courage, she forced herself to read it aloud. Emma, it's been a long time. Her heart dropped. Was this really happening? Let's hear the rest, Mike urged gently, leaning closer, a supportive weight beside her. She blinked back tears and continued, her voice trembling as she spoke. I've missed you too. It hit me hard when you left. I wish things were different. As she absorbed his words, warmth mixed with the cool tang of regret. It felt like a window had cracked open, a ray of light breaking through the shadows of the past. What else? Mike whispered, now fully engaged in the moment. She pressed on, reading each line, each note of vulnerability and pain, layered with a cautious hope. I know we have a lot to mend between us. I'm still angry, but I'm willing to talk. Emma's heart raced. Could this be the opening she needed? See?
Mike beamed, excitement sparkling in his eyes. This is good, Emma. It means he's willing. But doubt trickled back in. But angry means he could push me away. Or it could mean he still cares, Mike countered fiercely. Anger is a response to hurt. This is a chance for you both to heal. Emma swallowed hard, processing the optimism laced into his words. So many emotions twisted in her heart. Fear, longing, and an unexpected thread of hope. Then another message pinged in, cutting through the stillness. What now? She whispered, dread creeping back in. Mike squeezed her shoulder. You respond. Just be honest. Emma stared at the screen, her fingers hovering. The decision loomed large before her. Would she go deeper? Would she engage in this emotional conversation, risking opening up old wounds? The fear licked at her edges, but so did a flicker of bravery. Could she really step through the door of uncertainty? As she began to type, her heart thundered loudly, echoing in the surrounding quiet. Would this be the moment everything changed, or would it only lead to more heartbreak? A shaky breath escaped her lips. The ground felt less steady now, and for the first time, she wasn't sure if she wanted to leap or retreat. Would she find the courage to face her father's pain, or would she plunge once more into silence? Emma sat on the couch, her heart racing as she finished typing her reply. She took a deep breath and pressed send. No turning back now. The weight of her honesty felt like a 1,000-pound anchor, yet a flicker of hope began to bloom inside her. Moments passed in silence. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown to something momentous. Mike reached over, his hand resting on top of hers. You did it, he said gently, his voice full of warmth. You took a huge step toward healing. Emma offered a weak smile, but it barely touched her anxieties. The vulnerability she felt was overwhelming. She had unlocked the door to a past filled with pain, but she was no longer just an unsure girl looking for a way out. She was a woman willing to face her truth. The room filled with tension as they waited. Emma's phone buzzed again, and her heart leaped into her throat. It's him, she whispered, her hand shaking slightly as she reached for it. She opened the message, her eyes darting over the words. I'm not perfect either, Emma. I made mistakes too. Let's talk. Tears brimmed in her eyes, blurring the screen. He wants to talk. He really wants to talk. Emma turned to Mike, her voice shaking. She felt like the walls around her heart were crumbling, opening to the light she'd been craving. See? This is a breakthrough. You two can finally begin to mend things. You've got this. Mike beamed, pulling her into a warm embrace. As she settled back into his arms, a wave of emotions crashed over her. Fear, relief, love, everything swirled together in a tempest. Emma pulled back slightly to meet Mike's gaze. What if he believes I'm not worth his time? What if after all this he says he's done? Mike shook his head. You're worth it. You have to believe that. You're trying to connect, to understand, to heal. It shows you're brave enough to own your truth. That's more than half the battle. He's your dad. He knows you're worth fighting for. Will it really matter, though? Emma said, clutching her phone, still trembling at the threshold of uncertainty. What if my past is just too heavy? What if he sees me as a disappointment? Listen, Mike said, his voice steady. You can't control what he sees, but you can control your journey moving forward. You've laid the groundwork for something real. Let that be the driver, not your past, not your fear. As Emma looked deep into his eyes,
A sense of clarity poured over her. She remembered those candlelit evenings filled with warmth and gratitude. They were the moments she hung on to when the storms raged within her. With every candle they made, she had stripped away pieces of her guilt and shame. "I'm ready to face him," Emma said, her voice finally resolute. "I want to talk to him face to face. I want to hear him out." It felt like stepping onto solid ground after swimming in an endless ocean of fear. "Then let's do it," Mike urged, his support propelling her forward. "You deserve to rebuild that relationship, no matter what it looks like at first." With that decision, Emma felt the exhilaration of rushing wind against her face as she pushed through the storm. She would reach out to her father and invite him to meet. It wouldn't be easy, but she would do it, knowing she wasn't alone. Later that evening, after the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma sat down to craft her invitation to her father. Every word spilled from her heart, brimming with sincerity. "Dad, I've thought about everything that's happened between us, and I truly want to make amends. Can you meet me?" After sending the message, she felt strangely lighter, as if guilt and regret had begun to lift. Something deep inside told her this would be a defining moment in her life. The flickering candle of hope shone brightly now, a beacon guiding her through the darkness. Days passed slowly, the weight filled with anticipation. Then one sunny afternoon, her phone rang. It was him. With a strong mix of fear and excitement, she answered. "Emma," her father's voice came through, gentle but firm. "I'd like that. Let's meet." Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you. I'm really, really sorry." "I know," he replied. "We'll work through this. Just be honest." As she ended the call and turned to Mike, she was overwhelmed with gratitude. "He said yes. He wants to see me." Mike pulled her into a tight embrace, his warmth wrapping around her like a protective cocoon. "You're gonna be okay. We'll face it together." Emma smiled through her tears, knowing they had come so far from the shadows that once loomed. Together, they had built a new light, a new foundation. As she prepared to meet her father, Emma felt her heart swelling with hope. Whatever happened next, she would embrace it with open arms. The transformation was here, not just for her, but for both of them. They were on a path to healing. The love was deepening, and for the first time, she felt truly ready. This was their moment. They were stepping through the door together, leaving the past behind and walking toward a beautiful, bright future. Now, if you made it this far, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us spread the journey of transformation. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about the ending. Your thoughts matter. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to support us. Don't wait not even one more second to share.